Lake Nakuru lies in Kenya's Rift Valley. It was designated as a national park to protect flamingos. It supports up to 2 million of these birds and over 450 other bird species. African white pelicans and spoonbills visit to feed in the shallow water. Cormorants once returned to the lake every year, but they've been absent for the past few years, probably because the lake has been drying out during recent droughts. If Lake Nakuru ever became seriously polluted, the millions of flamingos which feed around its shores would have to fly elsewhere. But there aren't many alternative places for them to go. Wildlife photographer Cindy Buxton made a film about this wonderful place. She wanted to discover more about the birds and help worldwide conservation efforts aimed at protecting the park. She started by flying along the Rift Lakes to observe the flamingos from the air. From 300 meters up, Nakuru's 1 million flamingos show up as a vast pink raft that stretches along the shore. Just over 100 kilometers to the north, Bogoria, a far smaller lake, lies beneath a steep escarpment. Bogoria is visited by a great many flamingos which regularly fly between there and Nakuru. The flamingos travel between all the soda lakes of the Rift Valley, but Nakuru remains the most favoured for feeding purposes, though the numbers fluctuate a great deal. Sometimes there are very few, but at other times there are over 2 million on the lake. The vast majority are lesser flamingos, but there are often several thousand greater flamingos with them. In order to get footage of both species of flamingo, Cindy built several special hides around the lake. The floor of the main shoreline hide was constructed several meters below the level of the lake. Whatever the hide's inconveniences, it enabled the camerawoman to get on level terms with the birds. Lake Nakuru is shallow and rich in minerals. It's said to be one of the most productive places on Earth. Scientists have estimated that its bird population takes an average of just under 200 tons of food a day from the lake's algae, plankton and fish. The birds fertilize the water as they wade around in it, and this helps the algae to double its growth every 4 days. The soda-rich water teems with life. The woodstalk feeds on fish and crustaceans and flushes them from the mud by stirring the bottom with its feet. Black-winged stilts usually feed by picking small animals out of the water, but the lake is so rich that here the birds sift the water with their bills. The hide is so effective that a marabou stork uses it as a lookout. Apart from being bigger, the greater flamingo is also much paler than the lesser. The bird's head flagging movements are part of their courtship behavior. Though the graters appear to feed and behave in much the same way as the lesser flamingos, the two species have different requirements. The Rift Valley lakes provide the lesser flamingos with relatively better nesting and feeding grounds, which is why they occur in much greater numbers. The chick of the lesser flamingo is white, but the adults are rather more colourful than the graters, with beaks of dark carmine red with black tips. Like many other water birds that feed on small organisms, they puddle with their feet to stir up food. In the flamingo's case, the food is mainly the blue-green algae that thrives in brackish water. But they also eat minute brine shrimps. The flamingo's tongue is used as a piston inside its huge bill. It pumps the water in and out through sieve-like structures at the sides. In this way, it strains out the algae and the shrimps. With their long necks, flamingos are also capable of feeding in deeper water. "35 years ago, there were no pelicans fishing in Nakuru, because there were no fish in the lake. When a species of soda-tolerant fish called Tilapia grahami was introduced, the pelicans started to fly in. Now they're so common, they can remove up to 14 tons of fish every day. African white pelicans often fish communally, rounding up the fish and then dipping their bills together. Egyptian geese are common here. They're just one of over 450 bird species recorded in the park. Marabous are opportunists. They can catch fish, frogs and small mammals for themselves, but will scavenge when they can. At Lake Nakuru, they sometimes get an unexpected feast. While Cindy was filming, the shore became littered with dead fish. The marabous reaped the benefits, while most of the other birds appeared to be disinterested in the dead fish. They're thought to have died as a result of pollution. Events like this reveal the extreme vulnerability of Nakuru. The lake has no outlet, so what seeps, drains or flows in, stays in. Scientists know that for many years, agricultural chemicals, poorly treated sewage and industrial waste have all found their way into the lake. These pollutants threaten the purity of the lake and the survival of its dependent wildlife. In 1988, a project was set up at Lake Nakuru to demonstrate the importance of conservation and its link with development. The project monitors the water flowing into the lake and looks at possible causes of fish and flamingo deaths. Over the past 20 years, the area around the park has seen rapid population growth. Small-scale farming has increased, leading to extensive deforestation and soil erosion. This has affected the quality and quantity of the water in the rivers feeding the lake. Nakuru town, the third largest in Kenya, has expanded to within meters of the park boundary, bringing serious pollution problems. The results of the project are still being collected, but the aim is to develop and put in place a water quality assessment system. This will form the basis for a long-term management plan of the lake and the water resources within its catchment area. Just after dawn, reedbuck venture out of the surrounding bush to drink. Flamingos that spent the night far out from the shore fly into the shallow water. They like to wash daily where the freshwater springs feed the lake, in order to rid their feathers of soda deposits. Cindy had a hide overlooking the freshwater springs, and even though the flamingos are not particularly shy, she liked to be in it before the majority of birds had arrived to bathe. The lake level continually rises and falls. These trees were killed during one of the high water periods. They made convenient perches and nest sites for the cormorants. Many of the birds here are migratory. Shoveler ducks travel from Europe. Swallows, perhaps en route for Britain, use Nakuru as a staging point. Wood sandpipers, also from the north, migrate along the Rift Valley lakes. The lake's shoreline is rich in small animal food for waders. It's unusual to find two little stints from Arctic nesting grounds fighting so fiercely outside their breeding season. A pair of marsh sandpipers are busy establishing their relative dominance. This hide was built to overlook one of the most prolific waterbird areas. The number of species that can be seen from it demonstrates why Nakuru is visited by 170,000 people every year. As a national park, Nakuru is second only in popularity to the Nairobi National Park. It would be a disaster for Kenya's tourist trade and the whole country's economy if it was ever ruined by pollution. Close to the hide, white pelicans preen among coots and southern pochers. Pied kingfishers use the dead trees as fishing lookouts. Common sandpipers prospect the fallen trees for insects. Little grebes fish here. So do malachite kingfishers. Of all the 84 species of kingfisher in the world, only the pygmy kingfisher is smaller. The malachite can be identified by its slightly raised crest. This pair's upright posture and bowing display are part of their courtship ritual. A female malachite will often not mate until her partner has caught and given her several small fish. It's a common form of courtship among birds. The malachites were filmed from a specially built hide on the shore. Cindy's next objective demanded that the camera and the hide go afloat. But there's no bathing in Nakuru. The mud is black and reeks of sulfur. To avoid soda burns, Cindy had to wash in fresh water immediately after coming out of the lake. The hide floated on a cork base with the cameras safely stored in a box well above the waterline. Cindy's objective was to film the lesser flamingo's courtship display. Gradually, after several false starts, the birds got used to the hide. Flamingo courtship is spectacular and noisy. The birds, sometimes thousands strong, promenade up and down, necks raised. Although they display like this at Nakuru, they never actually breed here. They fly to Lake Natron, 200 kilometers south, to rear their chicks. While the promenading display is at its height, other flamingos feed alongside, apparently oblivious of the ceremony. Possibly they're too young to breed. The flamingos are thought not to breed until they're 7 years old. As part of the mass display, they fluff out their neck feathers and then suddenly dip their heads. While the flamingos are concentrating on courtship, one bird shatters the calm. Normally, marabou storks scavenge along the shore or hunt small creatures, but they've learned how to hunt larger prey around the soda lakes. Victims, once caught, are shaken to death. Marabous rarely attack living prey this large. Possibly they've been encouraged to hunt by the presence of young, easily caught birds or a shortage of carrion. The marabous make little difference to the flamingo numbers. Fish eagles take young birds too. Predators are a natural check on their prey. They rarely affect overall numbers, and they can help by taking out the diseased and injured. It's the unnatural checks that give cause for concern. If the areas around Lake Nakuru are developed further for farming, housing and industrial purposes, the waters of the lake are likely to become more polluted. And if that's allowed to happen, the prospect would be grim for the famous flamingos of Lake Nakuru.
Well, tomorrow at 7:30, Strictly for the Birds. Meet the diverse array of feathered creatures who call in for a swift billful at Africa's watering hole.